stuff so that you will be able to understand what's going on. You learned last week that there is no ozone layer, could better be called an ozonosphere, where the effect can be measured of where ultraviolet light rays meet molecules of oxygen, and that it is really oxygen that protects us from the ultraviolet light of the sun and not ozone. Ozone is a byproduct of the chemical reaction of the ultraviolet light from the sun striking oxygen molecules, splitting them into their ionic components, which then seek out other oxygen molecules and attach themselves, forming O3, which is ozone. It's very simple. It's in most junior high textbooks, or it was at least when I went to junior high school. It may not be there now because they're destroying our educational system so that the people can never challenge the ruling elite. You also learned that the ozone holes really aren't holes, but are a place near the poles where this effect does not take place. The only place where the so-called ozone holes occur are near the poles, in the Arctic and Antarctic circles. The holes only occur, folks, in winter, at whichever point is experiencing winter. They occur where the Earth's tilt causes perpetual night during the winter months, and where no ultraviolet light is coming into contact with oxygen. Therefore, no ozone is formed. So they're not ozone holes, they're just merely a place in the atmosphere near the poles where the effect does not take place. Therefore, no ozone is formed, except by the normal methods of lightning in the atmosphere and other discharges of energy. Thus, there is no production of ozone. Another so-called hole will predictably appear at the other pole region when that hemisphere is in its winter months. You should know by now that they are not holes at all, but only areas where the ozone-producing chemical reaction between ultraviolet light and oxygen does not occur. You should have also deduced from this process that the so-called holes will seem to appear and disappear as the region moves from winter into summer and then back again into winter. The whole process is a natural cycle. It is predictable and is very simple to understand. Didn't you think it was funny that the ozone holes were always over the poles and not over Los Angeles, where everybody's using hairspray and all the CFCs are going up into the atmosphere? How stupid can you all be? It's incredible that you read something in a newspaper and just accept it as fact without questioning anything when you know damn well that there is no freedom of the press except for the owners, and the owners of the press will print what they want you to believe and not objective facts ever. Wake up, people. The scam that CFCs deplete the ozone layer, which is non-existent, can be easily exposed. You see, most of the CFCs in the world can be found in the northern hemisphere, where most of the rich nations are located. So why then does a so-called hole appear over Antarctica every southern hemisphere winter? Why not over New York, Tokyo, Paris, Los Angeles, or Stockholm, where these CFCs are in the most use and thus can be found in the atmosphere in the largest amounts? Why does Los Angeles spend hundreds of millions of dollars to deplete the ozone in the atmosphere directly above the city every year? And did you know that most major cities in the world spend hundreds of millions of dollars to deplete the ozone? In other words, destroy the ozone in the atmosphere above their cities? You weren't aware of that, did you? Well, if you don't believe me, call and find out. Call and find out. That's what I did. It's very simple. You see, because ozone is considered to be pollution. Oh, this is so hilarious. I'm telling you, folks. I can't help but laugh at all the sheeple out there that are just so stupid they'll believe anything that anybody tells them. It blows my mind. I can't comprehend how people can be so, the word is not ignorant, folks. The word is really stupid, mentally crippled, stupid. And this is just one example. You're going to hear a lot of examples on this show. And if you don't like that word stupid, you better change your dial right now, because you're going to hear it a lot. You got to wake up. And if you can't look at yourself and admit that you've been stupid, you're never going to wake up and you're never going to solve the problem. And that's what I had to do. I had to look in the mirror, look right in my own eyes and say, Bill, you've been stupid for most of your life and you've got to change that now. You see, if I hadn't admitted to myself that I've been stupid most of my life, I would have never changed anything, and I wouldn't be doing this tonight. So, why do we only find these so-called holes over the poles and not over New York, Tokyo, Paris, Los Angeles, or Stockholm? Is it because the few personnel stationed at the weather and research facilities at Antarctica use too much hairspray? Why is it that I am able to predict the exact locations and months that the so-called holes will appear and disappear over the Arctic and Antarctic? Because the whole thing is a hoax, folks, designed to make idiots who cannot think for themselves scream for total control of everything and thus help to usher in the one-world totalitarian socialist government. Let us take a real hard look at chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs. For according to the doomsday prophets, chlorofluorocarbon molecules are going to rise to the stratosphere, where ultraviolet radiation will break them up, releasing chlorine molecules which will act like a hungry cookie monster and eat all the ozone molecules. This, of course, will cause an ozone hole, and everyone will get skin cancer, right? Wrong. Totally wrong. Now, let's look at what they don't tell you. According to measurements, only 1% of CFCs actually break up in the stratosphere, so that 7,500 tons of chlorine, remember that number, 7,500 tons of chlorine, are being released into the stratosphere every year. That's for the whole atmosphere in a year's time. That's the total destructive force of chlorofluorocarbons, 7,500 tons of chlorine. The amount of chlorine spewed into the atmosphere from natural sources makes that measly 7,500 tons look like a drop in the ocean. The atmosphere, folks, absorbs 5 million tons of chlorine from ocean biota, algae, plankton, etc., 84 million tons from biomass burning, 36 million tons from volcanoes, and 600 million tons from seawater. This does not include a volcano like Mount Pinatubo, which loaded at least 20 million tons of chlorine into the atmosphere, of which a very significant portion went into the stratosphere. Mount Erebus in Antarctica, which erupts every day, emits 20 times more chlorine into the atmosphere than the entire amount of chlorine allegedly produced from the breakdown of CFCs. Mount Erebus is about 6 miles upwind from McMurdo Sound, the station from which chlorine measurements are taken. The readings are then used to claim that CFCs, not natural chlorine sources, cause the depletion of the ozone layer. It really does not matter, as ozone is not layered in the atmosphere, and it is not what shields us from those nasty, nasty little